Hello, everybody. This is Phil Simborg down here in Florida, and above me on the screen is my good buddy David Wells, who is a co-teacher with me at the Backgammon Learning Center. Say hello, David.
Greetings, everybody.
So the reason we're here today is to discuss a cube situation that was way over my head, or at least a little over my head, when it hit me. And I immediately reached out and got help from both John O'Hagan and David Wells to get help. And I think it would be a great lesson for you as well. And I'm going to show you what happened. One of my students sent me a problem. I'm going to share my screen and show you the problem that he sent me. The quiz factor might help you get it right, but let's talk about this situation right now, and I'll set the stage for you. The score is 4 away, 3 away, and white is losing. He needs 4 points to win the match, and red needs 3 points to win the match, and white is holding a 2 cube, and white is on roll. Red just rolled a lousy roll that left a shot, and white is on roll. And the question is cube action. Well, my student missed it. He didn't double here. And he said, Phil, why should I double here? And I said, you know what? I would have missed this cube too. It doesn't look like a double to me either. And that's when I went and got help from O'Hagan and from David Wells, both of the Backgammon Learning Center. Again, I loved O'Hagan's description, and David's going to show us what that is. A very mathematical approach that explains why it's right to double here. And by the way, I'll show you that it is correct to double. I guarantee you most people would miss this double. And by the way, just to prove I learned something, not too much later, about 2-3 weeks later in Jamaica, I had a similar situation came up. I got it right. I doubled. A guy standing next to me who was a very fine player bet me that it was wrong because he didn't understand it either. But look at this. It was via blunder, almost a double blunder, not to double this, even though you only win about 40% of the time, even though you only hit about 31% of the time, it would be a big mistake. So before I turn it over to David Wells to tell us what the hell's going on here and why, I want you to know who David is. Aside from being a great teacher for the Backgammon Learning Center, a few years ago when David was playing a lot, he was ranked number 5 on the Giants list in the world. He started playing a lot of poker and didn't show up at too many backgammon tournaments, but now he's back and he's playing like the number 5 player again in the world. And the reason I know this is I'm seeing his PR is under 3 PR. In fact, one of the matches he played in Jamaica was under 2 PR. What was it, 11-point match, 13-point match?
13-point match,
13
money
point
round.
match.
I sadly lost.
Yeah, you lost the match. What'd you play at?
A 1.5.
Yeah, so what's the point of playing at 1.5 PR if you're going to lose? That's stupid. I don't lose playing at those PRs. When I play at those, well, I don't play at those PRs. So anyway, let's find out why the hell you should double here and why it's right to double in a situation like this at this score. David, it's all yours.
Okay, this is not a very intuitive position. You look at the position as white on roll and you just feel like you're losing badly. The key here, though, is the score and the cube. Here, if you double the cube, you get to use all 4 of the points. It gets you to 100%. And if you lose the cube, your opponent actually only gets 3 of the 4 points because he only needs 3 points. You can think about it like as if you were flipping a coin and you were risking 300 versus winning 400. You'd be very happy to do that if you were under 50%.
You'd be happy to double the stakes, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So if you could flip a coin at 50-50, risking 300 to win 400, your EV would be $50. So you would actually only need like 42% to make that coin flip break even. Anything above that would be profitable for you to flip that coin. And here it's the same thing. You're getting all 4 points and your opponent is only using 3 points. So you can actually double as an underdog. And it's a little bit counterintuitive, but you got to recognize this position because it will come up. And if you play a lot of backgammon matches, you'll see this come up often enough. As Phil just said, he recognized this position in Jamaica and made a great double and made a bet and was able to figure it out.
Yeah, but I'm better than you, David, because I won that match.
That was very good. And you won the bet, which is
I won the bet, which excited me more than winning the match, by the way.
So you can approach this you should approach this with a bit of common sense if you don't want to learn algebraic formulas. And
This
but you
is
can,
why I think, David, that you're such a great teacher. That explanation you just gave is not anything close to what John O'Hagan told me, who also is a great teacher. But I would say John would be, his explanation was great for an open level player. What you just explained, I think an intermediate and an open level player could grasp readily and see the logic of that you're getting the full value versus the partial value. Now, John backed it up with math, and I challenged you to do that. And holy cow, you did it.
yeah, the learning to do the math is a good puzzle. Luckily, we have people like John who can help us with those formulas. We can pull up the math formula and look at the actual and figure out the actual doubling window. You need to know match equities to figure this out. You can pull up a match equity chart on the internet, and uh, we know that if the leader drops the cube, he's going to be 3 away, 2 away, and a match equity table will show that as being 60-40. So if he gets doubled here, the leader will need to drop anything where he's not greater than 40% to win. Because if he drops, he will be 40% to win.
By the way, that tells me right off the bat that if I'm losing 3 away, 4 away, and I'm holding a 2 cube, I should be a lot more trigger happy with the cube. I should stop more often and think more quickly about doubling in situations where I might not double at other scores because my opponent's take point is so high.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You're looking, you not need to not be thinking like you would if you were playing for money. And and the inverse of that is true. If you're the leader, you need to be very careful about giving that cube because you gotta have to drop it if you don't have 40% coming back. All right.
Okay, so
So
the rest of this chart talks about why it's right for white to recube here, and it all is based on his doubling window, which is something that I've almost always ignored my whole life. I always thought about take points and market losers, and I really didn't think about market windows. And what's the significance of a market window, and how do you figure out what that is?
well, market window is the time you can profitably double, which is going to be lower than the take point. And you can figure out that with an algebraic equation or with some common sense. Talked about
So
the
the
common
bottom
sense
line
approach.
here is after you do all this math, and I'm not going to cut you off on this, David. I want you to explain it. But it basically tells us is that this score, White could double anytime he's higher, conceivably, if he's higher than 32.5, given the right position and the right chances.
That's right. That's going to be a risk divided by risk plus gain. And to know that, we need to know some match equities. And we can look at this. If the trailer does not double and loses 2 points, the score becomes 1 away, 4 away Crawford, and the match equity is 18.5%. If he doubles and loses 4 points, he loses the match and his equity is 0. Therefore, his risk is 18.5. That's what he's risking by doubling. Uh, if he doesn't double and he wins, the score will be 2 away, 3 away, and his equity will be 60%. And if he doesn't double and wins, he will have a 60% match winning chances. If he doubles and wins, he will win the match and have 100%. Therefore, he can gain 40% by doubling. So the risk is equal to 18.5, the gain is equal to 40. And then we plug it into this equation, which is risk divided by risk plus gain, and we're to come up with 32.5%.
Okay, and this is what John O'Hagan does over the board. This is what I'm sure Art Benjamin can do over the board, and Mochi. I know you can do it over the board too, but the amount of time it takes and the skill that it takes to know to be able to do this math, assuming you know all the match equities, is just over my head. It's not, I'm not that good a player to have confidence in doing this. So what I've done is pretty much memorized the take points and memorized at different scores when I should be trigger happy. But then when I got to a similar situation like this, the flag was arose because of this lesson that you gave me, that you and John taught me, that at certain scores, if I can double and get more value out of the cube on 4 than my opponent can, or even on 2, the same thing works if the cube goes to 2. If I'm getting greater value, then I don't necessarily even have to be a 50-50 in a position to give the cube.
And this position that we showed, that Phil showed in the picture, is a wonderful reference position because it's a big double and a big take, and where you're losing the match and should be recubing. So I think it's a really good reference position to basically make decisions from without necessarily knowing the formulas. You can kind of get this through knowing this position and then finding similar positions is what Phil did in his match. I don't think you crunch the numbers during your match. You just recognize the situation.
Well, something else came up. In this position, it's pretty obvious if you hit, you lose your market. So you know that if the timing is right for giving the cube. If you don't cube here and you hit, you're going to be very, very sorry. Now, of course, if you cube and you don't hit, you're going to be sorry also. But again, risk over risk plus reward says the reward is much greater than the risk, and that's why you give the cube even though you're only at 40%, or even in this situation, you're only at around 31% to hit. But remember, if you miss, it's not the end of the game. You might get another shot here. If you go through all the rolls, there's rolls where you get other shots, and there's other ways to win this game. You can win with double sixes and be in the game. But
And if you
David, you
don't,
pointed out, go ahead.
oh, well, if you don't double here and you still lose this game, you're kind of screwed. So it's not like you're not risking that much by doubling because if you don't double, you can just know that you're one away, four away, and that's a hard one to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. By the way, all of this, the double points and the take points are all based on the assumption that there's no gammons. And in this particular position, there's not a lot of gammons, so it really applies very well here. But David pointed out something else very, very valuable to me, and I didn't quite understand it, so I tested it. I went out and figured out what happens if we got a bunch of gammons involved. So let me show you another position at the same score. And again, with the two cube and the possibility of doubling, here, there's another huge reason for white to give the cube, because if he doesn't give the cube and he doesn't hit, he's going to get gammon so much anyway. It says it shows 44%, but it's going to be even higher than that if he misses the shot. It's going to be in the 60s or whatever. He gets gammon so much anyway that by doubling, he wipes out the gammons. He can sit on and by the way, he wipes out everything. He can sit on that ace point forever and wait till the last shot. So there's another reason to double if there's gammons involved. You want to explain that a little further, David?
well, I think you explained it very well. You are killing those 44% gammons because you're losing that match that time. You don't want to take this too far because sometimes this one is only a medium double because sometimes you're going to get a shot later and you're not going to win after you hit it, or you won't lose your market. Here, a five is just enough of a market loser to justify that double. Because a lot of positions you're not going to lose that market and the guy's going to take regardless. But here's this, you kind of threaded the needle with this one, which is good. It's a very interesting one.
Okay, so for the high level open players, you know this lesson, but I promise you some of you would have missed that cube too. For the rest of us, intermediate players, for regular open player, I consider myself to be a pretty decent open player, and I won a few tournaments and stuff. And this is still one that's difficult for me, but it got easier just because of this lesson. At least the flag goes up. That's what I think. That's the most important takeaway that David taught me and John taught me on this lesson. To have a flag, to realize that at scores like this and situations like this, I might think about giving the cube, even though I'm not a favorite in the game, in that situation. That's counterintuitive to the way I played backgammon my whole life, because I mostly played for money. In a money game, your double point, you can double on the very last roll of the game if you're a 51% favorite. So that's your doubling point for a money game, and you would be stupid to double in most situations when you're only 51% in a money game. You have to usually want to be a pretty big favorite to double. So we've been raised to think that way. Now I'm channeling my mind a little bit better to become a little bit better match player because of this kind of help. Now, if you want
That's
more help, take lessons from David or John or me or one of our 25 teachers, www.backgammonlearningcenter.com. And I think we teach in 14 different languages right now. I think we're up to 14 or 15 languages. We teach online and live. And I hope this is helpful to you. David, thank you so much for your help. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, and we'll see you soon in any number of upcoming tournaments. David and I are on our way to Cyprus soon.
take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks, David.
Yep, you're welcome, Phil.
Close
Bye-bye.
it down.